If you've ever done a whole lot of volume with lunges, reverse lunges, walking lunges, Bulgarian split squats, any unilateral squat type of movement, you will know exactly how I feel right now. Debilitating glute DOMs. And it's only 24 hours after the fact. And we know that after 48, that's when the real stuff settles in terms of soreness. Like absolutely broken. I don't know how many times I've done this where I've had a stretch, long stretch of not doing any sort of unilateral work, like heavy lungy type of movements, and then doing a lot of them. It's crazy how taxing it gets. I think the only other thing that matches this is hamstrings, and I would say adductors when you smoke them with wide stance squats or like something like good mornings. So I knew today was going to be a challenge. Absolute freaking challenge. I ran, I walked, and then I squatted. That's what I did. I ran 500 meters, and my calves were lit by then. So I didn't want to continue running anymore because that's further going to limit my squatting ability. Went to a walk. And this time I decided to incline the treadmill to about 10 degrees, I think is the proper terminology, 10 degrees. Or is it 10%? I forget now. Setting number 10 on the treadmill. And I started walking with the focus of like basically calf raising. My calves are tight. They are limiting my squatting ability a great deal right now, especially with these new shoes. It's all kind of making it really difficult for me to squat. So I decided, okay, let's pump as much blood into them. Let's exhaust them so they're going to give more range of motion. And that's what I did today. Not only does an incline treadmill walk smash the hell out of the calves, but I started feeling my glutes as well. So much so that I started thinking about Louis Simmons. Now, I don't know how many times, throughout the year, his influence pops out into my mind. That man, I've watched basically every podcast that he's done on his YouTube channel. I've listened to him so many times. Like now when I go and search Louis Simmons on YouTube and the videos pop up, it's all kind of red bars. Like I've already watched it. I wish there was a number next to those red bars to see how many times I've seen some of these videos. The reason why I thought about him when I was doing the incline treadmill walk was because I think this mimics very closely a sled pull or sled walk, whatever how he calls it. And I remember the story, not the intricacies, but I remember the meat and potatoes of the story where he got this idea from. And it was from a bunch of, I think it was lumberjacks, working somewhere in like Sweden or Norway or some Scandinavian country like that. Where he noticed that all these guys who were working with lumberjacks, working with timber, heavy work, they all had really impressive deadlifts. Not so much squats, but deadlifts. That was his kind of assessment. And when he started, picking their brains in some of these competitions, he realized they were all lumberjacks. And so then he started picking a little bit more, and apparently they all cut the tree down, tie a rope around the tree, and then walk it. So tie the thing around the waist, the other ends of the tree, and then they kind of drag this tree to where they need it to be. So it was essentially a sled pull or sled walk or sled drag. So that's when he got the idea and he started kind of thinking along those lines. How can I, get the lumberjack effect without, having to work with timber? And so that's where the sled drags kind of originated from. And what he worked out was that even though it was a very, very small range of motion, he was able to work some of these muscles which are required for the deadlift. Now, I was on the incline and I was getting smoked with the calves. I've never done a sled drag myself, like properly. I remember once, probably some 4 years ago, or 3 years ago, I went to a local tire shop. I bought myself like a normal kind of tire, that was up for rubbish. Went in there, they'll happily, give it to me for free because they have to pay to get rid of it. Took one, got it home. I put a bolt through it, drilled a hole, put a bolt through it, and I think I bought some like from a hardware store. I bought some sort of a cable or something. a lifting, like a dip belt, and I started dragging this thing up and down my street. At the time, I didn't really know what I was doing. I didn't really know as much as I know now. I did it a few times, and then it got to a point where I was like marking the damn street with the tire. He was kind of leaving marks. And to be honest with you, I didn't really understand so much. I ended up giving it up because I felt like an idiot. I didn't really know what I was doing. Only because I saw people do it. And I don't even know if Louis inspired me at that time. I tried it. It was inexpensive. It was great. So I've had some experience with it. And so today was the other time, today was the time where I thought about that moment and Louis and those Swedish or whoever they were, lumberjacks. I went to the squat and I felt good. The calves felt a little bit, they had a little bit more give, and I had more mobility in my hips. I think it's because of the incline walk. I've been running every single day and I haven't felt like this. So I think there's something to a sled drag, an incline walk. When you think about an incline walk, the back leg has to do a calf raise every single step. When you're walking on flat, you don't have to have that calf raise. So what I've learned from all this running and all this treadmill walking, I haven't done a lot of that, but staircase, the Stairmaster walking, is that my calves get pumped like nobody's business. So there's something, you can do your calf raises, and I've done a lot of calf raises, but it doesn't quite work the calves like this stuff. Maybe because you're doing hundreds of reps when you're walking, and the way your hips are kind of rotating left and right, it's kind of like a walking gait. I don't know whether that kind of adds to the whole calf contraction. I'm not 100% certain what the mechanics are, but I feel like just walking on an incline or being on a Stairmaster machine does more to my calves than any other freaking calf machine that I've done. The reason why I'm saying all of this is because I felt pretty good squatting today, even though I'm sore as hell. My glutes are freaking sore. But whatever I did with the incline treadmill enabled me to walk. Enabled me to squat. And I did that for calves. I didn't do it for my hips. But apparently the incline walk prepares you for squatting, everything you need. So it does your glutes. Because you have to remember, in order for you to squat efficiently into an ATG position, the stuff on the back of you has to be long. It has to be long. So you need to warm up your glutes, your adductors. They have to give for you to get to the ATG position without any lumbar flexion. If you have restrictions in your glutes, it's going to start to pull slack from underneath and above, and it's going to cause a posterior pelvic tilt or a butt wink or a lumbar flexion. The incline walk warmed up the glute, so the glute was kind of already happy to let go, and warm up my calves. So you need dorsiflexion and you need hip flexion in order for you to squat effectively. I don't know if I've stumbled upon the greatest freaking warm-up for a squat ever. It seems it's unbelievable. Now, because I walked for about, I don't even know how much I walked, like 10 minutes, 8 minutes or something I walked on this incline. It did also tax my ability to squat. So maybe that was too long because I felt weak, But surprisingly, I felt like I was in a good position. Much, much better position than I was yesterday. Yesterday when I got to the gym and I started squatting, it felt horrible, man. It felt absolutely horrible. I felt like I was completely leaning over, no dorsiflexion, no hip flexion, just horrible. But with this incline walk, I feel like I've addressed almost every single component that I needed to be able to squat. And then all the stories that I've heard from Louis Simmons started raining in. He used to say stuff like, I'm paraphrasing big time here. He used to say stuff like, all I really did this period of my life was do a lot of sled drags, and my deadlift went from like 650 to 700. I couldn't squat, I couldn't do anything, I couldn't deadlift because my back was screwed, but I did a lot of sled drags and my deadlift increased. Like stuff like this you hear all the time from Louis and the boys around the place. Like they love the reverse hyper and they love the sled drags. I don't know how many times I heard him say that, and I never really kind of, as my brain works, if it doesn't make sense to me, I kind of just ignore it. I don't know why I ignored sled drags, because now I'm kind of thinking to myself, how do I rig up a sled drag without destroying the freaking street. Because, you know, the one thing that always stopped me with sled drags is like, okay, I'll get the sled, put it on my street. Like, it's not exactly like if you're training in like a, you know, what do you call it? Like a factory area, like an industrial area that no one cares. You know, I don't want to be freaking dragging a sled up and down the street at 4:30 in the morning, or even at 12 midday. It just doesn't look good, right? And, you know, normally I would say I don't really care, like I'll just train, but I do have considerations for my neighbors, and I don't think it's a good look to be dragging up and down the road, because I have a feeling it's going to scratch the road as well. You know, leave marks, you know, steel on cement, whatever it is, tarmac. I don't know what do you call that material that the roads are made of. I don't know if I could buy that sled and go to a local park every other day or something and do it on grass. I don't know if that's enough friction. I'll probably have to use more weight because of grass. But then again, like, I'll probably destroy wherever park I go. So unless I take it to some sort of car park somewhere, you know, I think Louis recommends around 50, 60 meters, you know, one way. I'm intrigued. But the other thing is, like, you know, you also want to squat after you sled drag, like, you know, part of a workout. So, and my gym right now doesn't have a sled or a place where I could do that. Certainly not 60 freaking meters. The only other option I have is to do it on a treadmill, like an incline. And I don't know whether that's the same effect. I mean, I've never heard Louis say that the treadmill does the same thing. He probably certainly doesn't. I don't know. I'm just thinking about, like, all those hikers, you know, if you're climbing up a freaking some sort of gradient, you'll also get the same effect. What I'm trying to kind of think about in my head right now is an incline walk the same as a sled pull? Obviously, you can't, you know, load endlessly the walk, because, you know, eventually like a 45-degree freaking incline is going to become a freaking step up. It's not going to, you know, you don't want to be stepping up. You want to be walking with resistance, because if you start stepping up, you're going to start, you know, smashing your quads and whatever. That's not the point. The point is to have, seems to me, minimal hip or knee, you know, range of motion, and still retain the walking kind of gait movement. So I think sleds are the best option. But I think right now, an incline treadmill works well. So, you know, if you haven't tried an incline walk, I know a bunch of you guys have been telling me about it, that you do this. It was a pretty cool feeling. You know, I don't know whether it felt good because of my DOMs from day before, you know, all the lunging that I did, but it felt really, really nice to get the blood in there, and it kind of warmed me up to squat. Anyway, something to think about. I reckon tonight I'm going to be, for the millionth time, I'm going to listen to that Louis Simmons podcast titled Deadlift. I don't know what number it was. I reckon I've seen it 4 or 5 times at least. But that's what I'll be doing tonight. I'll have that thing playing in the background, and Louis just igniting my brain with thoughts. Anyway, guys, I feel like I'm talking and thinking at the same time. I don't know if any of this made sense, but appreciate you guys for coming this far in the video. And I'll catch you in the next one. Peace out.